Merry Christmas. My name is John Hildner. I'm a pastor at Trinity Lutheran in Rolling Meadows. We wanted to provide for you an opportunity to hear a story to lend to your Christmas celebration. We hope that this opportunity will give you a chance to celebrate the true meaning of Christmas a little bit better. Today I'm going to read a book. It's a folk tale called The Tale of Three Trees. It's retold by Angela Elwell Hunt. The illustrations are by Tim Johnke. This book is a very special book in our family history in that it was given to us by a family friend. All of our children have participated in musicals of its retelling, and I hope now that as you hear it, it might lend to your Christmas joy as well. One of the things you should know is that at Trinity Lutheran, there are two sets of three trees that have been planted there to remind us of the Trinity. I hope that as we tell this story too, it might help you rethink the meaning of those three trees. Once upon a mountaintop, three little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. The first little tree looked up at the stars, twinkling like diamonds above him. I want to hold a treasure, he said. I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I want to be the most beautiful treasure chest in the world. The second little tree looked out at the small stream trickling on its way to the ocean. I want to be a strong sailing ship, he said. I want to travel mighty waters and carry powerful kings. I will be the strongest ship in the world. The third little tree looked down into the valley below where busy men and busy women worked in a busy town. I don't want to leave this mountaintop at all, she said. I want to grow so tall that when people stop to look at me, they will raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world. Years passed. The rains came, the sun shone, and the little trees grew tall. One day, three woodcutters climbed the mountain. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, "This tree is beautiful. It is perfect for me." And with a swoop of his shining axe, the first tree fell. Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest, thought the first tree. I shall hold wonderful treasure. The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, "This tree is strong. It is perfect for me." And with a swoop of his shining axe, the second tree fell. Now I shall sail mighty waters, thought the second tree. I shall be a strong ship fit for kings. The third tree felt her heart sink when the last woodcutter looked at her way. She stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never even looked up. "Any kind of tree will do for me," he muttered, and with a swoop of his shining axe, the third tree fell. The first tree rejoined when the woodcutter brought him to a carpenter's shop. But the busy carpenter was not thinking about treasure chests. Instead, work-worn hands fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold or filled with treasure. It was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took him to a shipyard, but no mighty sailing ships were being made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat, too small and too weak to sail the ocean or even a river. He was taken to a little lake. Every day he brought in loads of dead and smelly fish. The third tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in a lumberyard. What happened? The once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted to do was stay on the mountaintop and point to God. Many, many days and nights passed. The three trees nearly forgot their dreams. But one night, golden starlight poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby in the feed box. I wish I could make a cradle for him, her husband whispered. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled as the straight starlight shone on the smooth and sturdy wood. This manger is beautiful, she said. And suddenly, the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in the world. One evening, a tired traveler and his friends crowded into an old fishing boat. The traveler fell asleep as the second tree quietly sailed out into the lake. Soon, a thundering and thrashing storm arose, and the little tree shuddered. He knew he did not have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and rain. The tired man awakened. He stood up, he stretched out his hand and said, "Peace." The storm stopped quickly as it had begun. And suddenly, the second tree knew that he was carrying a king of heaven and earth. One Friday morning, a third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from the forgotten woodpile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. She shuddered when soldiers nailed a man's hands to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. But on Sunday morning, when the sun rose and earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It made the first tree beautiful. It made the second tree strong. And every time people thought of the third tree, they would think of God. That was better than being the tallest tree in the world. I'm so blessed by this story because it reminds us that God gives us dreams. And those dreams oftentimes aren't far off, but the projection and the course of our lives may seem a little different. I wonder what Mary thought when she was betrothed to Joseph. I bet she thought of having a family, but I'll bet she never thought of bearing the Christ child. I wonder sometimes what we think when we see our children dream with the presence that they have. I wonder what we dream as we grow up thinking about our families. I wonder what we dream when we think of getting old. But I know that God is involved in all of that, transforming our dreams and making our dreams God's reality. This Christmas is a reminder, as all Christmases are, that God takes what we once thought was just folly, some kind of brokenness in our world, and transforms it into wonder and meaning and joy. I pray that you will enjoy your Christmas celebration. I pray that you will celebrate with your family. I pray that you will know that Christ is with you on this Christmas day, as always.